everybody, and welcome back to Cinnabon for We Bought a Mic, a pop culture podcast, a pop culture Saul cast,
pop culture Albuquerque cast.
We are traveling on Good Pod Road over here,
hitting you with a very special episode today, diving into the great, the one and only Better Call Saul here on We Bought a Mic. Mike Ehrmantraut.
Nice.
I don't know about all this. I don't know about that. We bought a Mike Ehrmantraut.
I'm good with it. I think Mike would like it.
Okay, cool.
Welcome, folks. My name's Ernest.
Better Call Hunter, because that's who I am. I'm
Nice.
the Slick Jimmy of the podcast. My name is Hunter.
And joining us today, a very special guest from snowy, chilly, nippy Nebraska in fresh monochrome. Javi, how's it going?
Going good. It's nice and cold. This guy in the taxi looked at me weird, so now I'm all sussed. But other than that, it's going great.
We're so glad to have you, Javi. We were talking about this for a minute. You know, we knew that this final season of Better Call Saul was coming.
Oh, baby.
And we were getting hyped for it. And then as it started to air, we got the first half at the beginning of the summer, and that was a lot of kind of hype. But as we started to barrel through the last few episodes, I was just messaging you every episode and just fully like galaxy brain, just in awe of what I was watching every week.
It totally required it, because that's the kind of show you're just watching like, oh my gosh, Jimmy swallowed something just now, and I think it was his guilt. So it's just, sometimes it's hard for me to like emotionally connect to some moments just because I'm so into it. So that's why like the rewatches come through.
I feel like this is a moment of kind of closing the chapter in a lot of ways. Not just on one of the best shows of the year, but of the decade and of the whole Breaking Bad saga. And in a way of like an entire era of television and of a whole genre of like modern prestige television. So this is it's bittersweet. You know, we're going to celebrate how good this show is, but we're also kind of leaving behind something really, really special and singular. So I'm really happy, but I'm also really sad.
Yeah, I can't see color anymore. So.
It's great. Yeah, just everything is flat. All of the color has been zapped out of your life at this point, just like Gene himself. It's crazy to think that the first episode of Breaking Bad came in January of 2008.
Wild.
It's been 14 years, 14 and a half years of this.
Let's kind of start there. So let's talk a little bit about like how we feel about the entire Breaking Bad Saul enterprise.
The whole Gilliverse.
Yeah. How do you feel about Breaking Bad? And then specifically this show, when did you start watching it and how did your feelings of it evolve through time? We can start with you, Hunter.
I vividly remember in high school like high school going into that first year of college was the last season of Breaking Bad. And I tried to binge through everything. I think that I caught up just in time to watch all of season 5 live and watched it with a group of us all in college. We would get together in the dorms and turn on AMC every week and actually watch the episodes as they were coming out. And it was an incredible experience.
Awesome.
We were screaming during Ozymandias, like waking up the whole quad.
Especially when you're like 18 years old, you're like, oh, cool. So this is just the greatest show ever made. Like there's just nothing better than this ever. And it's funny because Breaking Bad, eventually where it gets to is just every episode is fireworks. And it was funny because over the pandemic, I kind of went back and rewatched some Breaking Bad and forgot how slow it is for like the first 2-3 seasons. Yeah. It really is deliberate with its pace, which we're going to get to that in a second with Better Call Saul, because I remember whenever Saul got announced, it was like, sweet, you know, It's cool. We'll spend more time with Saul Goodman. I guess that'll be fun. You know, we'll see him become Saul in the first season.
Bob.
That'll be great. I do
Bob's
love Bob
great.
Odenkirk. So I watched the first season whenever it came out, and it was very slow. It is really moves at a snail's pace. Everything about it is intentional, but it is a very patient show. And to be honest, I think that at the time, whenever I watched it, I just didn't have the patience for it. And I kind of fell off of it. I kind of fell off of watching the show until about 6 months ago or so.
Hell yeah.
And I completely binged through Better Call Saul in just a few months, enough to watch the final episodes live as they were coming out.
Nice.
Amazing.
It's kind of funny that a show like this that's so slow, you wouldn't necessarily think that makes it better for the whole binge model. But I think that I liked it more that it was just like I could just kind of keep ingesting episodes, because eventually it's almost like comfort food, like just hanging out with these characters, just being with Jimmy and Kim and looking at Kim fucking file those papers away was just like, that's better than cooking meth to me, is just paperwork.
Definitely. Montage Game has stepped up.
Doc review.
Just doc review. It's the best. And just kind of going through, I couldn't really stop with the show. It reached a certain point, and it was really with the introduction of Lalo that I was like, oh, is this show just better than Breaking Bad? Is this just like a better show than Breaking Bad? I think that I come down to a point where I think that it's more consistent than Breaking Bad. We're going to get into this last season, but I just fucking Trey Magnifique. I don't think that you could possibly write a better ending to a series and to like two series, because it kind of also works to fill in some of those gaps that were left there from Breaking Bad too. So just kind of everything that it does the show is perfect. I love it so much. This is like one of the great joys that I've had this year, is being able to kind of take this all in, and it's amazing. It's perfect. We're going to dive into it more, but this show is like just it's perfect. It's one of my favorite shows ever.
Javi, let's go to you. Thoughts on Breaking Bad, and then what's been your journey with Saul?
Breaking Bad hit me like a bus when it came out. I started after season 3, so I watched all of that. And you're right, it's super slow. But I think that helps. Being able to binge, I think, helps with a slower show, because then you just kind of want to know where it's going. So what's rough is having to come back to it, I guess, too. But season 4 blew my mind. I still can't decide if I like it more than 5 or not. But that totally took over. Amazing show. And when Better Call Saul was announced, I was like, well, I got to see that. Like, whatever it is, it's got to be at least decent if they made Breaking Bad. And I had the same thing. It was super slow, very deliberate with everything. But I also just wanted to know what was up, because they went so far back with him. I remember thinking, oh, he's got a lot to do here. Either that or he's got to burn up a lot fast. And I'm ready to see whatever. But I mean, it turns out like they did it with Breaking Bad and they did it here. It just ramps up, it accelerates, and it goes faster and faster. Because like by the time you get to the last 2 seasons, it's like scam after scam. And this show has made me obsessed with montages. Yeah. It's so damn good.
The art of the montage is so good. It's so perfect in this show. Like
I never thought you could do so much good with a montage, and just how they show them doing all like filing papers, like you said. Like I'm in love with Kim, just of how organized she is.
It's my goal.
Like I use a post-it
ponytail.
Yeah, I grew a ponytail just to be like him.
Yeah, I wish mine could be as tight.
Thank you. But Better Call Saul, just like I was saying something like this earlier, like you watch Breaking Bad and they're also very deliberate with everything. So it makes you really pay attention to the show. And by the time Better Call Saul comes out, you're like, oh man, I'm zoned in. I'm on hard mode right now. It's like Breaking Bad advanced.
New game plus.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of took it as a challenge too. It's like, all right, what kind of training they're going to throw me in here for? But it totally took over, like the noir vibes and everything.
Much like the movies that Kim and Jimmy love, the movies they sit and watch, drinking wine. it kind of becomes one of those movies at the end, down to the last couple shots. They're just in one.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
That's very true. Wow.
So I've been talking about Better Call Saul on this podcast for a good minute. I had
You've been out here just like preaching for us, like, watch this goddamn show, guys. And I'm like, oh, you and your silly Breaking Bad Part 2. I don't need any of that.
I put it at the top of my best of the year list a couple of years ago. It was somewhere in my top 10. The years that it aired before that. It started to be one of those shows, like a lot of shows now, that just kind of really took its time between seasons. And then there was a 2-year gap between 4 and 5, and then another 2-year gap between 5 and 6. So it kind of became this show that like went away for a while, and people kind of forgot about it, and, gave people that chance to either catch up or come to this sudden realization once again of how special this show is. And every time it came around, I was the one waving the flag of like, all right, guys, here we are. Once again, it's another new season of one of the best shows on television. And for as much as I love Breaking Bad and I cherish that time of being able to watch that show live and feel that rush of excitement that brought us, the new grounds that show kind of forged. I feel like this, first of all, this show wouldn't exist without Breaking Bad, because how you were saying, Javi, it put us in a mode where we were able to watch a show like this, where we were in a headspace to be able to perceive a show like this. But this show, Saul, is so much more profound, and it's so much more invested in more nuanced and detailed minutia about the human condition, about morality, about good and evil, and all the layers in between. Breaking Bad has the fireworks. It has the meth cooking. It has the insane, just like pizzazz that you want from like a high octane prestige drama.
Well, no punches at the end either.
Right. Yeah. It's just going full force, nonstop. This one was okay with really taking its time. And yeah, there's a few episodes, a few entire seasons where it's just like, man, we're just watching Mike just take apart an entire car for 15 minutes right now. Like, that's really, we're just going to sit here and do this. And it's all rooted in character. And I think that's what makes this truly like a piece of art, a finely crafted, just the most detailed etching craftsmanship that you can get from a television show. It is unlike anything else I've ever seen. And going into this final season, I was just, not only was I in awe every week, but I was so self-assured that I was in good hands. And there's nothing else like that. Name another show that you can go into a final season and know that it's gonna be a banger.
It's so true, because it's also speaks to how unique of an experience it is, because you can't, making a spin-off, a prequel is already like treacherous ground, especially
you're like, these are my friends, I know where their life is going to end up. I know that Saul, it doesn't work out great for him and he ends up on the run. So like, what are we even building up to?
And Mike,
Gus, Mike,
and the fact that it's made by the same people, well, not the completely same like writer's room, but most of the same crew, the same cast, most of the same brain, I would say, to come back and to do that more, but like a whole nother show. And it's the kind of payoff you can get for just this very unique moment where like the greatest thrilling crime drama of all time, Breaking Bad, came out. And then Better Call Saul, now having mastered the art of, quick, demanding filmmaking, they're at the top of their game, just putting out these ultra cinematic episodes, even of just people sitting in a room and talking. Sometimes you get the courtroom drama, stuff like that.
It's some of the best stuff. I mean, again, it's all character based. And so many of these sequences are just this high tension drama built around conversations. Sometimes they're in a courtroom, which lends itself to its own type of drama, and sometimes they're not. And because this show did the work of making sure that everything going on is rooted in these characters and the dilemmas that they're facing, we're so incredibly invested in their journeys. But I think that what makes it transcend to another level is every tiny little decision, every camera placement, every song, every little touch, every little piece of ingenuity that it throws at you that you couldn't possibly predict. It just does things that you couldn't even fathom that you would ever see on television. It is setting a new standard is what this show has done.
Well, I mean, the thing is that you're kind of touching on here is just kind of, there's no nits to pick with this show. It's just like, oh, Peter Gould and Vince Gilligan just have like the steadiest of hand on everything that's happening. This random like extra who they got to just be like this little schlubby lawyer who works at the courthouse. He's the perfect touch for this show. And then we're going to bring back Francesca, and she's actually going to play a key role. Remember the receptionist from Breaking Bad? We're going to bring her back, and then she'll have more to do. All of the acting performances are perfect. We're going to get to Rhea Seehorn and like how
Queen.
There has not been a revelation like her performance in TV in years. Like where it's just like, oh my God, what is the rest of her career going to look like after this show? Like I have season tickets to everything that she does. Everything about the show, just the way that it looks, it has such a defined look. This Albuquerque yellow, bright, vibrant tone. And that's why it's probably one of my favorite uses of monochrome and black and white ever in anything, with not only kind of the stark contrast visually, but just what that represents for the characters as you go through. It's so well done. And I mean, this kind of goes back to what we're talking about before with how patient this show is this show is willing to spend an entire season where we're just focused on Michael McKean not being allergic to electricity. And like the whole first season, one of the reasons why it's so slow, because I was like, oh my God, are we really still doing this? We're still doing it with this fucking guy for a setup for, we're going to get into spoilers now of Breaking Bad if we haven't been already, but for 2 seasons later for him to get fucked by his brother in an epic courthouse scene that's like one of the best moments of the entire show, then kill himself due to Jimmy fucking over his insurance, which then that payoff doesn't come to play until the final episode of this season. Like they're just willing to plant these seeds, and they're like, no, we aren't going to worry about it. We aren't going to reap the benefits at the end of the episode or even the end of the season. We're going to take our time and let you just kind of sit with that, like, everybody else is blaming themselves for this situation, but I, as the audience, know that Jimmy's at fault for this. And like Jimmy is the one who caused this. And he's not even like admitting it to himself in these scenes. And it's patient storytelling like that I feel like I almost had to retrain my brain when watching this show. Like you think about something like, I don't know, I'm just pulling the first thing that comes to mind, but something like Stranger Things or something like that, like a more of a modern show where it is focused on like beats per minute. It's focused on like how many moments can we make within an episode.
It's
and
really
that's not necessarily diminishing like that kind of poppy style to a show, but whenever that is more what the norm is, it does kind of take a minute to like get yourself to hit the cruise control a little bit and just kind of live in a world instead of feeling like you have to like be constantly entranced by one thing or another.
Yeah. A big thing, you got to trust them. You got to be able to trust somebody who's going to put you through all that just silent, nothing, people working. It asks a lot of you. It's a very demanding show. But what you said, Ernest, is very true. Super specific, almost Fincher-esque in how every detail, like onset, offset, is super included. They've talked at length about the props team is like super on it. All the newspapers, every file is filled with papers and like actually working invoice numbers, all that sort of shit. Like it takes a ridiculous amount of time and all
detail oriented.
It's funny because then you listen to Peter Gould and it's like, yeah, we actually didn't really know we were going one season to the next. It's like, oh, fuck you. What? How did you do that then?
That's the writing process. That's the writing process. But I mean,
like, how did you not have this outlined, like written step by step along the way because it's so well executed?
It seems connected.
They're studying their own work. That's really all they're doing is they're going back and being like, what did we do 4 years ago? Let's make sure that we like actually study our own work and be true to it. And yeah, like you were saying, Hunter, this is at a different gear. It's not operating at the same clip rate as most TV. And that's why it's kind of resonating with a lot of people that are looking for that more kind of rich, more just meaty storytelling from television that's not fucking She-Hulk, you know?
Attorney at law.
Sorry.
Attorney at law, yeah.
But I'm curious, Javi, what
your favorite attorney at law, Kim Wexler or She-Hulk?
Saul Goodman versus She-Hulk. I want to see
Coming
it.
Soon to Disney Plus.
I'm curious now. Maybe they actually put Saul Goodman in there. There is a multiverse, so fuck.
Yeah, he could.
Yeah, why not?
Throw him in there. Throw him in there. I'm sure he would do great. I'm sure he would do better. I'm curious though, Javi, what you think about the flavors of this show, because it's not just that it's operating at a different pace, at a different tempo.
Yeah,
it's the fact that it's doing that doesn't make it one note. There are many notes. And I'm curious how you feel about like the fact that it does have all these different flavors and it's able to throw in, you know, a lot of times in the form of these montages that you mentioned, these or even these action sequences and these more legal oriented sequences. Like you're able to get a lot of breath out of what this show offers you, even though it's kind of in its own separate lane. Like, how do you feel like that all works?
Actually, that's a really good thing to touch on because the tone of this show is so, and Rhea Seehorn described it as slippery before. And I love that.
Slipping.
Either Ray or Bob. Yeah. Wow. Dude, they're so on it every time. But it like between, and the music too helps a lot. I really enjoy the score for the show. Dave Porter's been killing it since Breaking Bad. But I often will come to a show, find that I really like it, and usually it shows that I don't know how to describe. And it ends up being like a dark comedy, or, well, this one's a crime drama too, but it's also a dark comedy. And
again, those flavors.
Yeah.
It's all in there.
And I feel like I don't know, like a dark comedy is so hard to describe when you see it. And then it's like, oh yeah, I guess it is, because that is kind of funny.
Yeah. Like the scam in this final season where Jimmy Saul dresses up as Howard. Like
Dude,
that's
everything,
fucking
the thing
hilarious.
Is, everything with Howard, the entire scam is hilarious. Hiring the hookers to just show up at his like work.
Yeah,
it's so much
meetings. It's so great until it's not.
Right.
And that's the great thing about this show is this show knows how to make it fun and how to make you really cheer for horrible people, and then remind you like, hey, don't forget these guys suck. They're terrible human beings.
Yeah.
You shouldn't cheer for them. And I mean, Breaking Bad.
Great point.
Did that for the entire show of just like reaching to the point where people are like, ooh, Skylar's a bitch for not letting her husband be a drug lord. Like that's kind of the worst internet version of this type of thing. But I mean, all throughout this show, like there's moments every time with like Lalo on screen, I'm like, somebody needs to kill this man, but also please, for the love of God, I want Tony Dalton in every scene of this show. Like this man is incredible.
MVP, man. I fucking love that guy. But yeah, I think we need to at some point during this podcast go like character by character and make sure that we hit everyone, because I need to Michael Mando needs to get his flowers and everything.
Nacho,
so,
just
definitely.
But I want to touch on this concept of like kind of comparing it to Breaking Bad with the fun versus the tragedy of it all. Because in Breaking Bad, you have the meth cooks and all these things that, it's like, ooh, we're working, baby. We're making cash money. We're Breaking Bad. Let's do it. And it's like, that's what reels you in and makes you root for Walt and Jesse. And it's a very specific thing that show does, where it's just like, never in a million years am I gonna want to cook meth, but I see these guys do it and I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go, dude. Let's fucking do this shit, man.
I could do that. Just go to like a CVS. Get that.
Yeah, let's dissolve some bodies, dude. Let's fucking go. But with Saul, again, it's higher level storytelling. Like, we're seeing these creators elevate their skill sets, because what they're accomplishing here is not that easy. It's much more nuanced. And when you see these scams, some of them are like, I feel like I could do that. I wonder if I could pull a fast one on these motherfuckers. Like, this doesn't look that out of bounds. This doesn't look that difficult. And that's how they lure you in. And there's such a much more gray area with this show compared to Breaking Bad, where Breaking Bad is just like, it's really clear cut. Like, okay, we're dealing drugs and we're in the criminal underworld. And
you can try and like justify it's like, well,
I have cancer, so it's okay. But like at the end of the day, you're still a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Where this show, it's just like there's like a backwards ass like Robin Hood way to think about this, where it's just like, well, yeah, I was taking those monies, but like they were like shithead millionaires, so of course I'm going to take their money at the bar. Like it's almost like I'm in the right here. Like you're in the wrong for judging me for doing this.
Yeah, this show really could have gone anywhere. When they talked about doing a spinoff, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to, but of course they did. They talked about doing like a 30-minute like comedy hour, like Jimmy does a new case or Saul does a new case like every week or whatever. And eventually they did what they were good at, and it pays off so hard. But now, and like the world they create, everything, the atmosphere is dope. And also every single character on their game. Like Ernie comes back just bringing groceries for Chuck, and everybody's like, my boy. That's what I'm talking about.
Ernie, let's go.
Oh my God, I forgot about my guy, Ernesto.
Ernesto, bro.
How did we not get a payout? What happened to him? He just got fired?
Well, he's going to be in the
Chuck
next
died?
spinoff. The next spinoff. Better Call Ernest.
I really want to talk about this finale, because I don't want to wait until we're like pushing 2 hours into this podcast and then rush through talking about the finale.
Fair.
So I do want to go like character by character and talk about like everything that we love about them. I think we should pick our favorite characters. We should pick our favorite episodes. But let's dig into this final episode, Saul Gone, season 6, episode 13, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. 13.
Episode 62, I think.
This is
63.
Written and directed by Peter Gould. These last 4 episodes, because part 2 of season 6 is this second section that we got late summer, and we get these first 2 episodes, point and shoot and fun and games, that are kind of the aftermath of the Howard scam gone wrong, that ends in Lalo murdering Howard in cold blood. And we get these 2 hours to kind of, which by the way, the fucking final scene of plan and execution,
what a way to go to a fucking break is just.
He called them out perfectly. Like he knew exactly why they did the scam. He's able to put it together. The only person to ever call him out like that. and boom, just
and
got
then,
too close.
He just at wrong place, wrong time. Literally, that's the whole thing with the show is just wrong place, wrong time for so many innocent bystanders in this show.
I was so screaming. I was screaming at my television that it cut to black, and then I have to wait 2 months for the next episode. Bruh.
It's so funny because the show never did. There's no cliffhangers at all. Like the show doesn't really do cliffhangers, and they're like, no, we're gonna give you fuckers something for the last season. we got something up our sleeve.
Oh my gosh.
But it's so well done. And then the genius thing about this show is that the first 2 episodes, whenever you come back to break, Point and Shoot, and then Fun and Games are they're like the last episode of the season. Like they are the finale for Jimmy as we know him. Point and Shoot is just really like this big climactic episode. That's the Ozymandias where it's like, that's all the fireworks. It's all the people, the Lalo shootout, all that big moments. And then Fun and Games is the epilogue. Fun and Games is this aftermath of Jimmy and Kim, but really Kim's
finally done. Yeah.
Kim realizing
we've hit the breaking point
that they're causing.
It's over.
I have to say it's probably my favorite payoff because the whole thing, the whole question of what happens to Kim, I feel like my most important, or at least what happens to her here, you get a little more at the end. And there is that whole section of holy shit, what she.
Well, the question of this being a prequel and why isn't she in Breaking Bad?
Right, exactly. And that payoff, the whole breakup scene, genius. These two,
so good. It's heart-wrenching.
Oh man, like I thought, because even I talked to you about this, Ernest, I thought she would be behind the scenes, punching up legal dialogue for Saul Goodman.
We had all kinds of theories.
Yeah,
we were going back and forth. We were like, oh,
really?
No.
I was like, there's no way that she's too. She
so
can get
bad.
corrupted and everything, but I was like, she's too pure. She wouldn't be like. Whenever you see like the slick Saul that you see in Better Call Saul, that's a different human being from Jimmy. Yeah. And seeing we're going to talk about Bob Odenkirk and like how weirdly, I feel like he's kind of the unsung hero of this show, despite it being Better Call Saul. Nobody really talks about the layers.
He's the cornerstone.
But
he's just holding it all together.
He's playing like 5 different roles in this performance. It's insane what he's doing. Like it is. There's one moment in the series finale where it's the scene where him and Marie, where you see him come in and he's talking, where I was like, is Bob Odenkirk the greatest actor alive? I'm ready to have this debate right now. I've seen him just be like, I was actually a victim of Walter White. I was like, dude, he's doing it again. What? How is this keep happening?
Oh man, I felt the same way too. I was like, because I felt so much, I was just trepidation about this episode the entire week leading up to it. I was like, it's going to be a sad ending. Either Jimmy or Kim is going to do something extremely spiteful to each other. It's going to be really nasty. Saul, and especially after like you see him pull like this scam on these guys in the bar, the black and white jeans sequence. Like he goes hard on the cancer patient. I started to get worried because they went black and white, and I was like, if this is a noir, it's going to be a terrible ending.
What's after the phone call with Kim, which is key, and it's key that there's so many touches where they know that they have us at the fucking tip of their pinkies.
The call to Kim, and you're not going to play the dialogue for another 2 episodes. It's like almost like, fuck you, man. How do you have me so on the hook? I'm just so on the hook that I'm just there.
Chomping at the bit for every little crumb. And they're like, no, we're not going to give this to you. We're going to make you wait another episode to find out exactly what was said to make him flip the fuck out like that.
Like a gentle tease. It's like you're being edged for all those years, and then boom.
And that episode is called Breaking Bad. And we get our first glimpse at Walt and Jesse in this entire show back for the first time. I guess if you're not counting El Camino, back for the first time since the end of Breaking Bad.
Bryan Cranston looks great. Aaron Paul, he's a guy in his 30s trying to play a 20-year-old. It's not his fault, but
Actually, this is replicant version 176 from Westworld. So that cool, explains why he looks like that.
You and the 14 other people who are still watching Westworld can enjoy that one.
But yeah, this episode, it's really interesting because we knew that we were going to get these cameos, and it's kind of like expected. Like, how are you not going to show the two main characters from the other show in the spin-off show? And to incorporate them in the way that they did is so perfect, because it's not just cameos for the sake of cameos. It's not just like, oh, I remember that guy. He was my favorite from that other show that I love. It serves a purpose, the journey that Saul is going on in this episode of him literally breaking bad again. And those memories of him interacting with Walt and Jesse, kind of working what he's thinking as he's going down these paths of like reactivating this side of himself in Omaha. What did you guys think of all this?
Oh man, so cool. I have to say, I was really excited to see Bob Odenkirk play Saul with all the hindsight of knowing who Jimmy was. And when you finally get there, it's so interesting, like how he plays it, because he's so highfalutin. He's playing the game. Like he knows a mark, and he knows like to juice him up. He's like, this is top quality. And like, boom, already Walter's telling Jesse no details, but I'm listening. What do you got for me?
Also, it calls back to the early days of the show where he was playing, these guys at these bars. Like, we've seen him before. It's this thing the show is doing in this late stage where it's finding all these ways to link back to things that we've seen before and all making it thematically resonant.
It's perfect use of these characters because, like you said, Ernest, like they are there to inform the Saul character.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole main pitch of this show, I guess, at least it was in the writers' minds. It wasn't even like told to us audiences, is the first time that you meet Saul, in the first episode that you meet Saul in Breaking Bad, he gets taken out to the desert, sees a hole in the ground, says like, it was Lalo to Nacho. And like, he's blaming these people who you have no idea who they are. And he's just saying names in Breaking Bad. They mean nothing to you. And the writers like put that in the back of their head. And Peter Gould was like, all right, we can work with that. This is our setup, and we'll kind of go from here. And all of these cameos all the flashbacks that they do, flash middles, I guess, because the show is kind of a flashback. The time whenever we see clips from the Breaking Bad timeline are all meant to inform the Saul, Jimmy, Gene that we know now. And they kind of just make his character all the more tragic. Like it would be interesting to go back and see, because I mean, part of this is like happy accidents of them kind of falling into this story of him having more of a tragic backstory. Sorry, Brian is like about to click out of this Zoom call. He's laying right up. He's just fully flopping.
You need to set up another computer for him next to you.
Like, literally, it doesn't matter. I have so much space. He is never up here until I am on a Zoom call, and then he's just like, I need to lay on top of your keyboard right now. Anyways. Yeah, no, I completely lost my train of thought. Thanks, Brian.
I'm curious, going back to these like last 4 episodes here, because you mentioned that Fun and Games is kind of the Ozymandias of this show, of this final season, right? And then we get 4 more hours after that. In Breaking Bad, after Ozymandias, we only got 2. We got Granite State and Felina. Now we get 4, and I had a whole journey watching these last 4 episodes because it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, because you get Nippy, which is one of my favorite episodes of the entire show. Him, feeling himself, Cinnabon Gene playing this Cinnabon scam on the security guards. Like, I ate that shit up one bite at a time.
3 fur coats for me.
I warm up to it as I watch it, but I was a victim of circumstance there. because I felt like oddly compelled to look up as much as I could for the show. And there was a rumor, I think like Aaron Paul said that another Breaking Bad, he was going to be in another episode and it was going to be nippy. And he turned out not to be in it. So I was expecting a completely different episode. But it's totally ballsy to do an entire black and white episode. I'm so glad they ran with it.
I was waiting
not just
for
that. Talk about the show being patient, because it's funny of like this episode is just a very exciting. It's like a heist episode. It's very fun. But in the context of you like checking your watch and being like, there's only 3 episodes left. Why are we doing this like one-off where we're stealing clothes from a Burlington right now? Like, what are we doing? Like it's kind of a thing where it almost feels like a side off.
Yeah.
Like a side quest that we're doing right here in like the final episodes of Better Call Saul. So you're almost like, what are we doing here? Like, I know we got to get to all these other places before we run out of time here, even though that episode is so much fun. And I love that.
I get it.
Episode.
I mean, it's crazy because it's like, it's what I was saying.
Shout out to Gary Gergich, by the way.
Yeah.
Big time.
Terry, Jerry. You're watching this and you're thinking, on one hand, I trust these writers. I trust them with my whole life. I know that they're going to give me a satisfying conclusion to this show. But also it's like, we're literally going to just sit here and eat Cinnabon for half this episode. It's this mind-blowing thing where it's just like, yeah, you trust them, but also you're kind of freaking out a little bit of like, what are we doing? What are we doing? But
you're just like, man, we're just still talking Nebraska football, huh? We're just going to spend how much research are we doing here about Nebraska football in 2016?
It's the right kind of indulgent. It's the right kind of indulgence where you want to savor every bite of that Cinnabon. You just don't want it to end. And that's what they're doing here. They're stretching this out. They're giving you all these little bits, all these little crumbs, because they don't want it to end and they don't want to leave this world that they've been in for 10 plus years.
Now that you bring up Cinnabons, I have to mention my one nitpick about the show is that there's no way he's eating that Cinnabon in 3 minutes.
Okay, like, I was having the same thought. And
that's the one. It's just, I don't know. He can't put it back that fast.
They should have had more time for the heist, is what I'm saying.
I know. But have you ever had a Cinnabon?
I did. Okay, I did. I actually bought one.
And you timed yourself?
I didn't time myself, but I did take a while to eat it. Only because I was watching Better Call Saul.
Okay.
Oh, you ate it. Nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
So you have to put your back towards the screen, Javi, and wolf it down as fast as you can.
You're right. Next time.
You're right, because it would have taken longer, because nobody just out there just like perfectly cutting squares of the Cinnabon with his fork and knife, and just like nobody's ever eaten his Cinnabon like that cleanly.
Right.
But what if you were eating, it would delay you though, if you were like eating your Cinnabon and suddenly whoever you're with is just like, I don't have a wife. I'm so alone.
Don't tell the kid.
Oh man, another great scene. when he's just like,
triples of the Nova.
Look at me.
That's the funniest part. The show's really funny. Like that's kind of the whole thing. It gets lost on this and Breaking Bad for that point, where it's just like these shows are pretty funny. Yeah. Like they're not afraid to just like make you laugh at scenes and have like well-written funny dialogue. It plops
the tragedy right there too, because he's like, oh, I don't have a wife. And then my brother died. And it's like in that moment you see it, and you see it in Bob's performance. It's so fucking good, where he is trying to pull this fast one on this guy and is just trying to do this freak out so he doesn't look back at the screen. But then in doing so, he actually pulls out a real genuine emotion about his dead brother. God, so it's so fucking good, dude.
I want to shout out our boy Peter Gould really quick, because you brought up Lalo earlier, and notoriously Vince Gilligan wanted to axe that idea because he thought it was a total throwaway. He didn't want to touch it, and Peter Gould was the one who championed it. Yeah. And also Vince actually took a massive break when he was doing El Camino. He's gone for like 2.5 years, I think.
Peter Gould is really Vince Gilligan. I kind of associate Vince more with Breaking Bad and Peter Gould more with Better Call Saul, because this was kind of Peter Gould's baby. Like he was the one doing the majority of like the true outlining of where the Saul character was going to go season to season.
So to that point, the last 2 episodes, Waterworks and Saul Gone. Waterworks is written and directed by Vince Gilligan, and Saul Gone is written and directed by Peter Gould. Waterworks finally gave us a look at what happened to Kim after everything went down. Yeah. She's in Florida. She's thriving as an assistant to a sprinkler manufacturing facility of some sort. Yupping in bed all night.
I have to say, there's some, I didn't know if it was intentional or not, but I never mentioned that she works for a sprinkler company, and Marco, Jimmy's boy from Chicago, worked at a standpipe company. And I was like, all right, what's the plumbing connection? Because
is this the level of like Reddit plot threading that you're putting together?
Like, I went hard. I don't know. Show. I like because Jimmy, they throw out the toilet. Do they show them no, he has the golden toilet in the first episode in the Saul timeline.
The montage, with the ties.
He gets the office. There's a toilet left there. And Kim's one promise is just promise me you'll keep the toilet. All right, that's my one caveat or whatever. And I was reading into this the whole time. And there were some YouTube videos about it too. I was like,
it's not pay off. It's not plot, but it's little details like that they throw in for people that are watching closely. Because at the end of the day, like that's what this show is. It's for the people that want to watch closely, and it rewards that level of detail oriented scrutiny. It's all there, even if it's not crucial to the plot. Most of the time, it's not. Finding those little connections is what can be satisfying. So we get these last 2 episodes, and I saw a lot of takes online that Waterworks was like one of the best episodes, if not the best episode of the show. And I was like, oh, well, that was a great episode, but we've had lots of bangers before. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't know if Waterworks is like top shelf.
I don't know. We're going to talk about it whenever we talk about our favorite episodes, but Waterworks might be there for me. I think it's the best Rhea Seehorn episode in the entire series.
Oh well, her scene breaking down crying is incredible.
It broke me down. Like I was just I was a wreck watching that whole scene. Like it's kind of. Javi, you mentioned it earlier about how like the show sometimes you are like so invested in what's happening story wise that maybe it doesn't necessarily resonate with you on an emotional level in the moment. And I feel like there are some times in the show where this show does get to me for sure.
Definitely.
But Waterworks is probably the episode that like really Waterworks and then the finale Saul Gone are the ones that like hit me the most in the moment, where it's like, oh no, this is the end for these characters. Like there's no snazzy dialogue that's going to get us out of this situation. These are characters that are actually dealing with the repercussions of their actions.
I totally
and the
agree.
Guilt associated with it.
Yeah. And I say that, but especially after we get these back half of the last season, emotionally, I'm ramping up. The Rhea Seehorn scene, totally gut-wrenching. And that's when I know, like, oh, this is a tragedy. This is a total tragedy. It's going to end horribly. And I'm worried because of this.
By the way, I will say, just because we just commented on Vince Gilligan got sole writing credit for this episode. It's the only episode of the entire Better Call Saul series that he had sole writing credit on. He was just like, everybody clear out. I got the penultimate episode. Wow. This one's all me.
Yeah, I might give it the rewatch, but for some reason it didn't stick out to me as like way better than any of the other ones. Like I was fully on board with this whole season.
I totally agree with that because I do think some episodes are better. Like I think Fun and Games is in my top 3. But at least that. But also this episode and the last episode too. I only cried in I think I cried in Fun and Games, and I cried in the very last episode when they shared the cigarette with each other. But I was also smiling, like I had the biggest grin on my face, but tears. It's such a weird mix of tone in the show. I love it. It's crazy.
I mean, it's a love story. It's a love story, and to see it pay off in a satisfying way that's also surprising is all I could ask for. Because again, that question of what happened to Kim Is she dead? Is she behind bars? Like, what is their relationship like post Breaking Bad? That's this huge question hanging over this show. And the way it plays out here is so heartbreaking, because for the answer to be, oh, she just leaves him and divorces him and just never talks to him again until, 6 years later or whatever, that was probably on someone's bingo card, but not on mine. I mean, we're conditioned to expect more explosive things from our TV. We're conditioned to expect like the worst, especially from a show like this that has fucking Lalo and Howard being buried in the fucking super lab. These big events like this.
I was watching this thinking like Kim's definitely gonna die. And as season 6 was rolling on, I was like, Kim's gonna be safe and she's gonna leave him. And that's the reason why Jimmy fully becomes this Saul character, where he's just like broken inside and literally just has to fill the void with things. And that's kind of where we get to, is just he has to just have different women in his bed every night and live in a mansion with all of these lavish just things that actually mean nothing.
Exactly. That's the end of Fun and Games. Literally, the final scene of Fun and Games is him being full Saul. I think it's literally like supposed to be the same day as to when he gets kidnapped by Walt and Jesse, him starting that day. And it's fully recontextualized compared to when we first see him in Breaking Bad, where he's this like zany, wacky, crazy lawyer guy. And it's this exact same character on this exact same day. And it's the most tragic, just sad, gut-wrenching thing you've ever seen, where the final shot of that episode is just like zooms in on his face and he's ready to see his clients. And you're just like, that is a man who is fully broken.
And he's
inside.
also popping off duck lips and like listening to his own commercial, like with raised volume. And
so good.
It's so funny.
He's full Saul.
And it's the saddest thing. Like, yeah, you see the comb over, you see the bald spot, you see like, oh, this is him compensating for losing Kim.
Yeah.
And and you have to know, like, he's never going to find anybody as good. So a relationship forever.
No way, dude. She's like top tier.
That girl in his bed, like, she does not know how to file documents. There's no way that she can file them with the same efficiency that Kim.
She hasn't touched a Post-it note in 20 years.
She's the only person who ever liked Jimmy for who he was. And it's the sweetest thing. It's an observation a friend of mine made. A friend of mine, his name is Ivan, watched the last 3 episodes of me, not having watched a single episode of Better Call Saul. But he was so on it just from the emotional context. And especially like having that happen right after Breaking Bad, we're closest to like that era of him. It was so interesting to see though, because I constantly wonder, if somebody watches Better Call Saul first, would they enjoy it more? Or at least what would the experience be like? In hindsight, you have to believe that watching Breaking Bad first is a more enjoyable experience.
Oh yeah. It's got the fireworks.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we were saying earlier, but just as its own, it works on its own.
But one does inform the other. You could watch Better Call Saul. I wonder if somebody will make like a supercut that's like the majority of Better Call Saul, then the events of Breaking Bad, then Breaking Bad, and then you cut El Camino in there somewhere into Breaking Bad, into all the Gene stuff. I'm sure that there's some way that you could make a supercut of everything.
I saw like a watch order like that. I want to do it.
We're kind of skipping ahead here a little bit, but I think Fun and Games is my favorite episode of the entire series because of it has all of the things that we were talking about before, but also I didn't really know how well. I kept having this thought in the back of my mind is like, how well is the Saul stuff going to work? If we see Saul in the show, is it going to feel a little bit jarring, or is Bob Odenkirk going to be like only like half dipping his toes in Saul and then half being this Jimmy character? And
it's
instead,
all mixed in there.
Yeah, exactly. He's able to be Saul, but it does make me want to go back and watch Breaking Bad and just kind of see if there are like depths to his performance that we didn't even realize were there from the get-go? Or is he just fully broken by the time that we see most of the events in Breaking Bad? Because that's also another element to this, is we're seeing him being broken inside, but we just happen to know.
Well, that's one of the great achievements of this show, is that it gives this actor the chance to dig into a character in a way that most actors would dream of. It's an established character that was very kind of, a little bit surface level in the context of some of the other richer characters of that original show, and expanded to these like incredible depths. And it's all because of the popularity that original show got, and the chance to, blow it to this larger canvas. And again, with Fun and Games, with this final shot, I watched that with Lee, and she, the episode ended and she was like, "Oh, so that's the final episode of the show, right?" Like he saw, like, that's it. It was a prequel to that point.
Yeah.
And it kind of is, because then the last 4 episodes, the opening sequence informs that idea with the tape breaking down, and it kind of like
Great
clicks
touch
out to the blue screen. And that's a way to tell you, like, we just wrapped up a huge part of this story. We brought you all the way to that point where you initially met him in the first show. And now we're going to tell this other story that is in a way outstaying its welcome, but it does it in a way that feels true to life and true to the complexity of this story and of these characters. Because the way Breaking Bad ended is, a lot of people talk about how that show ended kind of a couple of different ways, and each one of those 3 episodes is a different ending. But at the end of the day, it was like, it wasn't that ambiguous. And what you're seeing here is, we're going to stretch out this ambiguity and tell a story about ambiguity, and about how ambiguity impacts the human soul and our relationships with each other, and our desire to feel loved and wanted by the people that we care about. And this final episode, guys, like, I think this is literally one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen in my life. Like,
it's up there with the best finales easily. Like,
I was in awe.
I don't know how you could have done it better. Like, I was like, no notes, guys. You did it. You nailed it.
This whole last season has been such a ride. And I was sad going into it, but also excited. And I was like, all right, whatever it is, I know that it's going to be good. That's what we've been saying. We're in good hands. I know it's going to be good. And then sitting down and watching this, my guy gets caught right up top, right up top in the dumpster. Yep. I'm laughing my ass off again. Like, it's fucking hilarious. He's spilling the diamonds everywhere.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like tens of thousands of dollars worth of diamonds. They're just in a dumpster now somewhere.
Also, shout out to Carol Burnett that we haven't mentioned yet.
Dude,
she's like,
absolutely.
I hope they get
Queen.
his ass. And
Saul Goodman is in my house. That was like a Marge Simpson. I don't know what that voice was. Don't even worry about that.
And I'm sitting there watching this, and he's there with Oakley. And obviously Marie comes into the picture, which I was really happy to see.
So glad to see Marie.
And I'm
Such
thinking,
a
like,
great closure.
Wonder if she's still a kleptomaniac.
Oh yeah, she's gonna steal like some pens from the penitentiary.
More so, downward spiral.
And I'm thinking, this is genius. This is literally genius. This is the perfect decision to end this show. Saul Goodman has to take on his biggest case yet. His own. Fuck yes.
I was hoping he would end up on trial for his actions. I knew, like, in the back of my head, like, he has to be his own lawyer at some point. Like, we have to get one more. And it's what I wanted, at least. And the fact that they found a way to give us all what we wanted, and to give the characters, like, for the most part, a pretty happy ending, all things considered. At least that's how I read it.
Yeah, I think that's the balancing act that's happening here, is like, kind of how you mentioned earlier that we knew we were heading for a sad ending. Like, if you put out a poll for people after the end of Fun and Games. It was like, do you think that this show is going to have a happy ending? You'd get a resounding no, like landslide no. And I think the writers knew that, and they thought, okay, how do we go to this finale knowing what we've built and knowing the tragedy that we built and still find a way to find that happy ending? Because one of the theories that I had told you, Javi, is like, I want this show to end with Gene at Cinnabon looking up and seeing Kim waiting at the counter for a Cinnabon.
That's the end. To black. That's like the Sopranos ending of this show, is that she sees Kim in the line and then just cut to black. No, I think the genius thing about the show, about this ending, is that like it goes both ways, right? They get to like have their cake and eat it too, where we get the happy ending.
Have their Cinnabon and eat it.
Have their Cinnabon and then eat it too. Yes, of course. Right. Where we get Saul representing himself and we get him winning. Like he gets life plus 90 years and life plus 109. I can't even remember.
It's over 100.
Yeah, no, it's life plus 180 years. So like he's totally fucked, and he gets it down to 7.5 years.
Incredible.
He gets it down to he wins. He doesn't, and he gets to like go to the fucking basically a resort prison where he gets to take golf lessons. Like he did the Saul thing. He's gonna get away from this scot-free, and yet, as soon as he's just like, I have news on Kim Wexler, like my heart sank. My heart was just like, no, Saul, don't do it. Like
he didn't know about the deposition from Waterworks. He had no idea.
Well, he didn't know about the deposition, but then like you're just like, oh, he's gonna do something to fuck her to like get another 6 months off of his, because that's what we've seen of him in this show so far, is that like he's willing to cut every corner that's possible whenever he gets the chance.
Well, I love how they don't tell you that outright. They inform you enough to assume that, and we're thinking about that as audience members because we know this character and what he's capable of, but they leave it open-ended enough for you to wonder, like, maybe there is a chance that it's not overtly against Kim.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of another whole genius thing about the show, is the respect that Peter Gould and co have for the audience, is that they just don't explain things, which is, always love that. You don't have to explain things, guys. But just the way that that's set up, and then leading to the courtroom, the big scene of him just saying like, I won, like I beat all of you fuckers. And now I'm going to tell you about how I'm really the face of the entire drug empire here. Like I was behind the scenes of everything. Sure. No, it was, but it's just like, he wins in both ways. He wins in that he gets himself, he shows like, I can get myself out of this. I win as a lawyer, and I win as like the backbone to this entire 14-year saga that you've been on. Like I am the puppet master behind everything that you've seen so far. Man. It's perfect. It's so well. I just like started clapping at one point. I was like, my God, this is the best thing, the best like a moment of just pure elation in a courtroom that I felt in the scene so long.
One thing you texted me, Hunter, that I wanted to get Javi's take on is the gorgeous beauty of how Saul reverts back to Jimmy during the course of this scene.
Well, not even just in the scene, the entire episode, we start as Gene. Yeah. We are Gene.
Then he's in the jail cell. He sees the etching on the wall.
He becomes full Saul for like a big stretch of this episode. We are Saul. And then where the episode ends, we end back at Jimmy. We end literally with a remake of a shot from the first episode of the show. We end where we begin. This whole cyclical nature of, we've been spending all this time from Jimmy to Saul to Gene, and now we revert Gene to Jimmy to Gene to Saul to Jimmy.
I want to shout out that fit. Walking in slow motion with that fit, that suit on, hair slicked back, looking a lot like Chuck.
It's pushed back. He used to be a piece of shit, but he's not anymore.
Listen, you think I give a rat's ass that Saul went in with his silver shark suit? I want to ask real quick, what color did you guys think his suit was?
Oh, like a nice lavender.
Yeah, I thought it was the lavender suit from the divorce signing.
Yeah, it looked like purple or red, maybe.
But I saw behind the scenes photos, I think today or yesterday, but it was a silver shark suit that he had in season 5 and a red shirt.
Oof.
And I know that like over the course of the show.
That's so sick. I should have gotten married in that suit. God damn.
With the crazy tie, lots of patterns.
They had over the course of the show, they've talked about doing like the color code, blue being the legal side, red being the criminal side.
Oh my God, that video you sent me, dude, we should link that. I'll make sure to link that because you blew my mind with this video you sent me about the color coding in this show. It is wild. Some guy on YouTube did a full analysis.
Yeah, definitely. I'll pull up the guy's username, and everybody's a fan of the show should definitely watch it because it just speaks to how every department on the show was involved in the storytelling between like makeup, of course, wardrobe, and then you had people doing props. Like, actually, Vince, you think Jimmy would like this instead? Like everybody, or like asking the cast themselves. It's so great.
That is like a whole thing. It's talked about by like people who are more plugged into the show, but one of the genius things is that they have kept the majority of the same crew season to season, and a lot of people from the Breaking Bad universe too. So there's just like basically they talk about like there's like Camp Albuquerque basically where they just go out there for a few months every year and just will like shoot out and just all like hang out and everything. But like, I mean, there's like a whole thing about just this whole crew that they just hang out all in Albuquerque. A lot of them live in Albuquerque, especially a ton of the actors in shows in this show are just Albuquerque actors. There's a reason why you haven't seen them in anything else because they're just dudes in Albuquerque.
They're just hanging.
It's great. That adds to the realism of the show that creates it.
They have a Walt and Jesse statue now.
That's right. Compared to like LA, it has to be like the middle of nowhere. And I'm sure at least Bob Odenkirk has talked about how he likes it to help like focus for the role or at least not have a lot of chatter time.
Albuquerque is a great city. I've been there a couple of times and it's
really?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've flown into ABQ a few times because it's a really nice. It's like a middle airport.
Are you going to visit the max security prison next time you're there?
Yeah, no. Well, I did do some research and figure out that it's based on a prison in Colorado. So I just have to go to Colorado and then I can go visit Jimmy.
Oh, the YouTube user's username is the Story Blueprint.
Got Story Blueprint.
Okay. I'll have to check that out.
But yeah, it's a great video, super insightful. But the reason I brought it up is because he's wearing a red shirt for his last court case. So it led into my theory that he was full Saul mode. I'm going to fuck over Kim in this last trial up until the moment he sees her. Because my read on it, at least, is that now in hindsight, after everything, I do regret not having anybody left or not being loved. Because Peter Gold has talked about Jimmy just wanting to be loved or respected or be liked even. But everybody kind of shit on him throughout the show. So
do you think that he was going to fuck her over until he saw her?
That's my read on it. Okay. If I watched it again, I might pick up on stuff that changed my mind, but I
really think that it's a whole thing where like Jimmy was like, I want to win both ways. Like part of him, I think that he wanted to get caught from the moment that he talked to Kim on the phone. The moment that Kim called him and he was freaking the fuck out is because he's just like, he was mad, but he knew that she was right. He knew that she was right, that I should turn myself in. And that's why he's just like, I'm just going to put myself, let's go back to that cancer guy's house, even though I know the drugs are wearing off. Once I get there, let me just like drink some of his scotch and just like play around with his watches. Like he is so just like pushing the limit of like, how far can I go with this until I get caught?
Oh yeah.
And just, I think that's why it was a whole thing of just like, I almost now thinking back on the episode, think the whole scene with Marie is just him being like, it's been a few years. Do I still got it? Oh yeah. Sure. No, I still fucking got it. I can still
definitely
do this. I'm still the best at this. But at the end of the day, I do know that I'm wrong here. So I am going to do this.
Is that after when he's in the cell by himself and he reads the writing on the wall? My lawyer will ream your ass.
Yeah, it's after that. Yeah. Okay. It's after he reads that in the jail cell.
Man, but that scene when he's just pacing this is how I go down, found in a trash can. Oh, Marion catches me. Like, what a fuck show. And then he's just like, his reaction to seeing the graffiti, just slumps down, crying, laughing. Like Bob Odenkirk, top of his game. By the end of this show, he's just learned so much from just working. It's like also a beast.
The tragedy of it being an old lady that gets him. When it's like
when Sandpiper was the whole start of everything.
The type of people he used to help out with his cases.
How far we don't fell.
There's such a it's poetry. It's just
there's this whole cyclical nature to the finale. There's a whole a strong argument that the finale is the best episode of the entire series, just because of
man, it's
how it just ties up every fucking little thing that you want without feeling over-explanatory or like. I think a lot of the hindsight backlash to the end of Breaking Bad is that it has a little bit of Lord of the Rings Return of the King to it, where there's just like
it ends a lot.
All right, we have another ending. Okay, so now we're ending again. It's like it's kind of too many times that we're like trying to hit every serotonin bump, and it just kind of has diminishing returns to it.
Well, this
says it in the most satisfying way, where it's tying up loose ends, but it's not like over investigating each loose end that's out there.
Well, the perfection, the genius, the thematic weight is also in those flashbacks. You know, it's the time machine flashbacks with Walt and with Mike and with
if
Chuck.
You had a time machine.
Oh my God. I was so happy to see Chuck again. I didn't think I was going to get to see the great Michael McKean again.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So grateful.
So good. It's so meditative and nuanced and precise. And it just really makes you think about like who this guy is and what his fate was. And, you know, when Walt kind of puts that button on that scene and says, "Oh, you've always been like this." It's true, but Walt's kind of just talking about himself in that moment. He's not, it does apply to Jimmy, but he's not really, it's ringing more true to himself because he's thinking about himself because he's a selfish prick.
Oh, that's a cool read, actually. I like that.
And I think that what we see in this final episode is that, a lot of the things that happened in this entire story is that Jimmy has always been like this, but maybe he wasn't. And maybe how this show ends and the hope that we find in the end is that, no, Jimmy and Kim are not going to go back to pulling fast ones. They're not going to try to bust Jimmy out of jail and pull a scam on these poor prisoners just trying to live out their lives. They're not going to try to get Paddington in on it and do a whole bakery heist. They've learned their lesson and they haven't always been like this. And there is hope to change and evolve. And I think when it comes to this love story, it's such a complicated love story because on one hand, Jimmy is this incredibly tragic person that has pulled Kim to this dark side and involving her in this criminality with Mike and Gus and all these horrible things. But there was a moment there when Jimmy was ready to bow out. And he literally said, "We don't have to do this. We can just punt it to when it's right." And she does a fucking U-turn on the bad choice road, a literal, whatever this show is like actually just like hitting you with a hammer. It's so good because it's like,
it is really good. It's just like, the metaphor is going to hit you in the back of the head with a 2x4.
We're doing a U-turn on the bad choice road. And she makes that choice to push him. It's like, he's pulling her to the cliffside. Then he kind of teeters back. And then she pushes him off.
Well, the thing is, I mean, she has the whole idea about Howard. She says, "Well, we shouldn't do it, but if we were going to do it, here's how we would do it." And she outlined the whole thing. You don't hear her plan explicitly in the end of, I think it's at the end of season 4 is whenever it's first teed up. Season 4, season 5. It's a long con of just trying to fuck over Howard.
Yeah, but no fun.
It's Kim's idea. Because the thing is that it's not just all Jimmy. And that's a genius thing about the show is that they're bad for each other and that they bring out the worst traits of each other.
Yeah.
And like, like they love each other. And that's kind of another smart thing about the show is that it never they never have a dramatic breakup in the sense of like oh, you're like tearing me apart, like any kind of thing like that, some corny ass shit. It's that Kim is mature enough to realize that they are both like bogging each other in the mud so much that they need to be separated or else it's just going to kill each of them.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's hard. It was hard for me to see them breaking up with each other because I knew they really loved each other. And like, and it plays so well. They're so good at it. And when it came to Kim just trying to cheer Jimmy up, hey, let's pull another scam. Let's go harder. I thought they were going to go through with it. And they were happy for it. So I wanted to see it. But of course,
they get off on it too.
Yeah,
they start like banging during the
not yep get off on it. Do you think that they would stay together if Bob Odenkirk and Bev was yep.
Which if they do a Better Call Saul movie, a la El Camino, then we have to see Yep Guy again.
I need more Yep Guy. Just
no
talking,
toilet,
making Florida State deviled eggs.
He's waiting
with Miracle Whip. Do you think this will work? I hope so.
Oh god,
just
so good.
Waiting for Kim at the Applebee's. She's never coming, dude. She's not coming, dude.
No way.
Well, no, it was a new Outback opened up.
Oh,
and they
Outback.
Have to check out
Sorry,
Outback.
I'm sorry.
Come on, it's a new Outback. When there's a new Outback in the neighborhood, you gotta hit that shit up.
I love the Central Florida representation at Waterworks, where they not only
where are they at? Tampa? You think it's like Tampa? That was what my
no. They're on the Atlantic. Because they mentioned Satellite Beach, and there's also a shot
like Titusville, maybe.
Yes, no, they actually bring up Titusville too. There's a shot of Kim driving on a specific road that I recognize in Cape Canaveral, and there's an ugly ass building that they call the Cockroach that they included in there. And I recognize it. I was Leo pointing meme. It's like, I know that. Apparently,
like Central Florida locations.
Apparently, it's all CGI magic, and they shot it all in Albuquerque and just made you think that it was Florida.
Should have fooled me.
Good job by them. Honestly, it's incredible. I thought that it was in Florida. I was like, man, they found a way to make Florida look as ugly as it has looked in anything. They just made everything look flat.
Yeah.
There's no depth. There's no vibrancy to any. No one has ever shot Florida. I mean, to be fair, no one's ever shot Albuquerque like that either, where they just make everything so flat and monotone visually. And
well, to the black and white piece, you were bringing this up earlier about how there is this thematic weight to the black and white. We first see the black and white in season 1, where we first get that first glimpse at Gene. And we get these tiny little snippets every season. And it's like one scene at a time over years. And finally, in this last run, we get these extended Gene sequences that culminate in finally seeing Kim. And it's when we see Kim in black and white that it all sort of clicks together thematically. And we see like, okay, there was a certain thematic weight to Gene being in black and white because of the entire story that's been built around this guy and the literal like color of the Saul character that's now non-existent. But when it comes to seeing Kim in black and white, it's like, oh, this is a woman who has chosen this life. She didn't escape from the fucking cops after, the downfall of Walter White. She is choosing to be in this existence so that she doesn't have to make any choices. Pay attention to what she does. She doesn't have any opinion about anything. She doesn't do anything because she's so afraid of any of her choices being the bad choices.
She's not even ready to commit to Miracle Whip for deviled eggs.
Not even.
She says, I don't know. I hope so.
Or strawberry vanilla ice cream. Rough.
Come on. Do better. No, but like it is one of those things where, I mean, I don't know about you guys. Maybe y'all were more adept viewers than I was. But whenever I was first seeing the Gene flash forwards, I wasn't thinking, oh, yes, this has thematic resonance to it. I was just like, cool, that's like a fun visual
quirk that we can just have here to let me know I'm in future times.
Right.
That like did not click in my head as like, oh, this is actually going to
just a visual marker.
And I never would have thought we would spend like the majority of 4 full episodes in black and white. I thought that like if we do get a flash forward to present, we'll re-enter color at that point.
Yeah.
But it's so much smarter to still keep the color and the texture zapped from this future world, because that's what's happened to the characters and everything that they've been through.
And all that remains is their decisions, their choices, and the consequences of them. And that's the magic of this ending, is that we don't have anything left except the weight of what they've done and the fallout of all of that. And again, to this love story, it's like, it's really complicated because he says in that Marie scene, he just needs one person to believe him. And in that scene, he's referring to the jury, but he's actually talking about Kim. And I do think that there is a good choice to be made about a case to be made about him not having the best intentions going into that. But I think that he is deep down hoping that she's there to give him that out. Even if he is like fired up and going full Saul mode, there is still that piece inside of him that's like, that knows that Kim is the one who's going to allow him to fully express his humanity. And he's just waiting for that chance. And yeah, I think seeing her is what finally triggers it, and makes him vulnerable enough to confess his truth and face his truth. And it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I mean, I was just in awe of that entire sequence. Also,
it's one of the best butts in a monologue like ever. Just up there, just you hear the same thing and you're like, he's like giving the same exact speech they was just a second ago. He just says that, but
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I like had a moment where I was just like sitting in bed, like, just like, oh my God, what's happening now? Where are we going from here?
Also, shout out to that exit sign shot. As soon as he mentioned Chuck, and you get the exit sign, and you get Kim framed in the negative space of the exit sign.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I was like,
dude, everything
fuck.
about this show is so well done. I've mentioned it before. I threw it up on my Twitter whenever they have that last shot of Kim smoking the cigarette in the jail cell. But I want to like blow that shit up and put it into a poster in my house, because I'm like, oh, this is like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And nothing has ever been this perfectly lit before. Like, there's no reason for this to be this stupidly gorgeous.
This show, actually, and I've been watching, friend of the pod, Brett, I've been watching some episodes with him recently, and I try to commend with him even the lighting, because even the lighting of the show is amazing. I know they try to go with more vibes, just from like throwing a little smoke in Chuck's house to showing with like high shutter speed cameras to catch all these like dark shadows and very subtle lighting. It looks great, but that scene, like even using the same music cue from their first cigarette together and then being together in that cell, just looking like an iconic duo. Like, yeah, we've been through a lot.
It's a perfect ending.
And you're left wondering, like, are they gonna
finger guns?
Yeah, she can still be a lawyer if she wants. Will she help Jimmy?
I like how they didn't give her the finger guns too, because they needed to nail down that idea of things have changed. The consequences are here. The lesson is learned. And at the end of the day, it's not about them being together so that they can go back to the way things were. They're going to move forward in a new way and still love each other while being very careful to still hold the weight of the consequences of their actions. And it's a beautiful ending. And I couldn't have in a million years have asked for anything so perfect, because I never could have predicted that it was going to end like this. All my theories were all over the place and were too easy and too TV. You know, this gives us something more real and more true to these characters and to this story. and to the complexities of this story. And yeah, that final jail cell sequence, like, my God, just put that in the pantheon, put that in every museum, because when she calls him Jimmy, when she says, "Hey, Jimmy," I just sunk down into my couch, because I was like, yeah, that's right. That's right.
I do want to ask,
he's back. That's his full human self.
What did you guys think about Better Call Saul? Call Saul in the bus there on the bus ride.
At the beginning of the scene, I thought it was a little on the nose, but by the end of the scene, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah.
That's exactly how I was at first, like,
it's a little weird.
What are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? But then by the end of it, I was like, yeah, let's fucking go. And then immediately afterwards, you see the shot of him in the kitchen with the dough turning.
Yeah, like, Cinnabon.
So good. And it's just like, I ended up kind of coming around the scene, because it was like, oh no, he's going to be okay in jail.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter, like, if he's not in prison where he's getting golf lessons. Like, this character, it wouldn't make sense for him to he's so charismatic and there's something lovable about him that he was always going to be able to get along fine kind of wherever he went, because people like that just do. Like, people like that exist in this world are going to be able to make connections wherever they go.
Let's face it, because if he didn't have the good grace of everybody in ADC Montrose or whatever, he would have had to join with like the Aryan Nation or something.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. He's definitely shaving his head day 1. Getting shanked day 2, dying day 3.
Also, shout out to Bob. Like, there's so many instances of just small acting. The little smile he gives as a button at the end of that scene, it's equal parts like broken because he can't escape Saul Goodman, and also happy because he's like, yeah, that's right, motherfuckers. I did that
still
shit.
Got it. I still fucking got it.
Fucking me, dude.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. So let's shift gears a little bit and kind of broaden the scope out to the season as a whole and the series as a whole, and kind of give out some superlatives here as we wind down. So I think we should start out just to kind of solidify. We've already been teasing it, but favorite episode of this final season. We're counting both part 1 and part 2 here. I'm going to go with the finale. I really think this is, without a doubt, one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen in my whole life. It is just on another level.
It's such a good call, man. Because because so much pays off in that episode.
Yeah, it's kind of as like, you can't really ask for a better finale than that.
And it's the way they get you. The moment they go black and white, I'm thinking, oh, this is rough. This is not going to end well. I mean, we always had that idea, but to be like the gentle caress of the nuances of Jimmy's personality, his shift between Saul and back, I have to say, I'll give my top 3. So number 1, finale. Number 2, fun and games. But shout out to my number 3, chicanery, because that is an all-time episode.
Oh, wait. Are we talking?
We're talking just
the
final season.
Chicanery is on my list for the best of the entire show. Like, oh man, talk about a courtroom payoff. That episode is so fucking good. I remember as soon as I watched that episode, I messaged her. It's like, oh shit,
this is getting real.
This is it. This is it.
Number 3 for the season then. Had to be Planet Execution, because hot damn, down to watching Howard's eyes looking for the dilation, Jimmy and Kim bathe in the red light in the photo room. I was just like, oh man, wearing the gloves, just full crime mode.
Patrick Fabian, underrated
He's
MVP.
So good. Namaste.
Fabian, I hope he gets all the roles and all the awards, because man, can that man run it.
It felt like Howard was kind of winding down, like he was just going to slip out of the show kind of unceremoniously. And then in this final season, they were like, no, let's bring this fucking guy in. Let's go.
Because I was like, Hamlin McGill, you would think that we would hear that at least at some point during Breaking Bad. So it's like, no, we're going to destroy this. We're going to dismantle this. one Hamlin is already dead before the show starts. The Hamlin and the other McGill, they're going to be dunzos. They're out of here, so there's no more Hamlin, McGill. God, it's so tough to pick it's tough to pick out literally anything from part 2 because like
it's all bangers.
You got to mention point and shoot. Like, again, I think that's going to be the episode that as time goes on is going to be considered the Ozymandias of this season. Like that is, you take the big bad of the show in Lalo and you kill him on the first episode of part 2. What
Incredible.
a fucking ballsy move to do. And
Flex.
how it pays off is so good. It's so well done.
As being a total action head too, shout out to that gun scene in the pitch black darkness where the entire thing is just lit by like muzzle flares. And like you never see like something like classic noir about seeing like a revolver in a shootout, and that Gus would use one to just throat shot Lalo. I'm sorry, but that is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Badass.
It is so cool, man.
Just smiles the whole time.
And like Gus is clean cut, and I forget sometimes he slaughtered somebody with a box cutter, but that he would shoot someone in the throat also is so cool, man.
Hard as fuck. And the thing is, and why that is a successful scene, what makes it incredible is that it's well shot and well directed, well choreographed, because you know who's coming out on top of that fight. Like, you know that it's Gus winning and Lalo's dying.
And they still
and the fact
make
that
it
you're
thrilling.
still like, oh my God, oh, he did it. Like, that's just perfectly well done. I got to go with still my top 3 would probably be, it's tough to pick an order, but Saul Gone, Fun and Games, and Waterworks. Just all 3 just incredible.
Yeah.
Waterworks is really, it might be like the most emotionally resonant episode of the entire series for me. Like I was a wreck at a certain point while watching Waterworks. It was appropriately titled episode, I should say. I felt the Waterworks.
So if I'm going to extend out to 3, obviously Saul Gone number 1, I got to go Nippy number 2.
Nippy's so much fun. It's such a fun episode.
It just kind of, it caught me off guard, like Javi said, but in the best way. Like I was all on board. And, I love Fun and Games, but since it's already been mentioned, I'm going to go with the episode where Nacho dies. I think.
Oh my God, we haven't even talked about that. Dude, Nacho's
oh my
death.
gosh,
Nacho's death is incredible. Like, it's so fucking good. Talk about like somebody who like has it both ways, where he's just like, I'm gonna fucking take it. Like I am deciding my own death, and then fucking kills himself.
Rockin' Hard Clays, episode 3 of season 6. It gutted me man. Because there was no other way for Nacho to go. Like he was just completely cornered. There was no other options for him, but I was still like, how's he going to get out of this?
Same. I feel like a child watching, like, he's like, all right, but there's no way Mike's going to let him die. Right. Like he's help him out.
You just think exactly. You're just like, come on, Mike. But also you still have that like bug in the back of your head where like, well, we did watch a show that took place after the events of this and didn't see that guy Nacho involved very much.
And I ignored like Mike still working for Gus. Like maybe I could see Gus forgiving him if he like, I don't know. But to see it play out like that and then realizing, oh yeah, there's no way Gus would leave a loose end. There's no way.
Right.
And it didn't occur to me till after, just to cool myself down. Because that episode, talk about emotional weight. That was dark, man. Nacho's whole 3-episode arc was so cool, man. Between the action and how he went out, man. So good.
Is that the same episode where Gus has that moment with the wine owner? Or is that the following episode, Hit and Run?
Oh, no, I think that's Point and Shoot, I think.
Yeah, that's way later.
Oh, that is in Point and Shoot. That's another just one of my favorite little subtle character moments in the show. Just a great. I mean, in case you forgot that Giancarlo Esposito is incredible in this Gus character, like here's something to make you remember and like a quiet character moment.
Great.
That's amazing. Do you want to give a shout out to, we mentioned Peter Gould and Vince Gilligan, of course, but like the unsung writer director of this show is Gordon Smith.
That boy.
He also wrote we're going to talk about in a second, but another one that's in the Pantheon Hall of Fame episodes, Bagman.
Nice.
Oh,
show.
yes.
Which we do get a flashback to in the final episode, but man, nothing like Bob Odenkirk drinking his own piss out in the desert. That's just give it to me every day.
He also wrote Chicanery, which is a masterclass episode.
Dude, Gordon Smith is all over the show, and he's got to give him his flowers too. Just genius.
Definitely.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more in this space of like the best episodes of the whole show. Because maybe I'm kind of I told myself I wasn't going to do this because this is just such a meaty podcast, but I'm doing it anyway. We're going to build the top 10 Hall of Fame episodes of this whole show. This has now become a Pantheon TV episode.
You did not brief me enough to do enough research before.
Okay. Well, podcast. it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough and dirty. But I think we can safely come up with 10. Come on.
Oh no, I can come up with more than 10. That's the problem. I think, okay. So the problem is that I have to make sure that recency bias doesn't invade this Hall of Fame too much. Because the problem is that I could put the entirety of the back half of like part 2 of season 6 in the Hall of Fame, theoretically, just because it's like no notes on all this. This is how you end a television show, is just all of this.
Yeah. All right. We're doing this fully on the fly. But we've already mentioned, so we mentioned Saul Gone, Fun and Games, Chicanery, Bagman, Nippy, Rock and Hard Place.
That's 6 from season 6. We might have to cut out. I said Waterworks too. So we are at 7 from season 6, which is we're only left with 3 episodes. And I feel like we might have to cut some because I have 3 off the dome from different seasons that have to be included.
There's so many. Let's tough about this show, especially because sometimes shows get better over time, but we just have high caliber episodes sprinkled into every season.
Exactly.
Like we get Chicanery season 3, which is definitely in my personal top.
Yeah, it's got to be in there because of like the importance for the entire show. I think that Chicanery has to be in there.
You get a little taste of Jimmy and Kim like scamming together, but then you get them in the courtroom together with the heel scam and against none other than Chuck McGill, the greatest lawyer of all time. It's just like challenge of the greats. I love that episode so much.
The great A.A. Dowd, formerly of the AV Club, he wrote a full series ranking on theringer.com of every episode. This is his top 10 that we can use as a framework, and we can see what we like and we don't like. Okay. Number 10, Rock and Hard Place. 9, Waterworks. 8, Lantern, the last episode of Chuck.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That episode is fucking great.
Just without a doubt, my favorite piece of music is in that episode with Chuck tearing down the walls. It's called Walls
it's
by
so
Dave
good.
Porter. You get the horns, like the swelling up, man. So great.
You just describing everybody. That, it just like it flashes to my head, that scene and the score. So good.
Inflatable, season 2, episode 7 is his number 7. Number 6 is 5-0, episode 1, season 6. Number 5 is Wexler v. Goodman, season 5, episode 6. Number 4, Pimento, season 1, episode 6.
The caviar of the South.
Number 3 is Bagman, season 5, episode
Bagman
8.
has to be in the Hall of Fame. Bagman is, we mentioned it earlier, it's perfect.
Definitely.
Number 2 is Winner, season 4, episode 10.
Ooh, nice.
And
Such
number 1 is Chicanery, season 3, episode 5.
Chicanery number 1. Nice. I think that Winner does have to be in it. I think this show is really good at season finales, guys, because also I think that the season finale of season 5, Something Unforgivable, has to be in it, where you think that's the episode where Lalo's gonna die. Nacho perfectly sabotages him, lets him come in.
The raid on Lalo's house.
Yeah, that's the final episode of season 5. Yeah, that like something
so
just
cool.
so fucking good. And also like you get the establishment of like him showing up there, and there's like a lot of just like normal people who aren't involved with like all of this horrible like drug dealing mobster shit that are just going to be innocent bystanders to this brutal massacre that's going to happen.
I'm also gonna shout out the episode before that, which is Bad Choice Road, which is the episode right after Bagman.
Oh my God, that 3 episode run at the end of season 5. Just
guys, this is an impossible task. I regret this immediately.
They're tough because Saul good, man.
All good, man. So I think we can do this, guys. We have to limit ourselves on season 6 episodes. So I think
Nippy can go. Nippy can go. It's fine.
I want to volunteer a season 2 click, the season 2 finale where you find out Chuck is recording Jimmy. You got Mike with the sniper. Oh my
God, that's such a good moment. Oh, that's so good.
There's so much. And Mike, going to his car, and then who left the note that said don't. So many great moments.
Yeah, we haven't really mentioned Mike, but talk about like kind of adding color to a character where I personally love Jonathan Banks. Didn't really know how much meat was left on the bone for that character. Mm-hmm. And then after seeing the show, I'm like, could we get just a whole Mike spinoff of like pre Better Call Saul? Like, let's just keep going on there.
Winner is the episode where Mike has to kill the engineer. Yeah.
Werner Ziegler.
So season 4 is in the running for the best season. I love this final season. I think it would probably take the cake just because they just wrapped it up so perfectly. But if I was going to choose any other season, it might be 4, just because 4 was when this show proved itself to be its own entirely unique thing out of the shadow of Breaking Bad. And that storyline of the super lab being Bill and the relationship that Mike has with Werner is really well done. And then also on top of that, you get great stuff with Nacho. You get more Kim. You get all the fallout of Chuck's death and how that impacts Howard and Jimmy. I really, really love season 4. That's kind of like my subjective personal favorite.
Season 4 is the first season where like the plot threads kind of start to come together a little bit, because season 3 is incredible. Season 3 has the chicanery episode. Like it has the legal battle scenes, but early on, there's a lot of like, there's legalese over here, and then there's this Nacho storyline over here. And like sometimes they'll intersect together, but they're kind of really separate. And season 4 into season 5 is when the threads start to become a little bit more intertwined.
Exactly.
Together.
Dude, I have to agree with you on season 4 because I feel like it's an unsung hero. I feel like a lot of people, I've heard some people say that they think it's a slow season, but you do get a lot of quiet moments. I actually love that about the show. Like when Jimmy goes to get a job at this copier store, and he makes the most excellent pitch. Like he has the interview. They think he's decent. Okay. Immediately turns around, and just to see if he can, he gives the pitch of a lifetime. I know printers inside and out. It's in my blood. And these two side characters, speaking of what you said earlier, Hunter, every side character is just amazing. Like these two guys
perfectly. How'd you find these guys?
Are so funny in the scene, and like just watching them be like, wow, when can you start? Like
he's like, you're just gonna hire me just like that? What if I'm a murderer?
Like
so good.
And my favorite montage has to be the Something Stupid split screen montage. And it's a little on the nose, but they literally break up by saying, I love you, which is, the song's lyrics are mess it all up by saying something stupid like I love you.
Oh,
and I just it's a tiny little tidbit, but again with the details that even would pay off. It's such a cool feeling. But I agree.
So should I read out the 10 for the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in.
I should order these in chronological order, but I'm again, this is rough. This is rough and dirty.
This is podcasting at its finest, ladies and gentlemen.
Damn right.
Saul Gone, Fun and Games, Chicanery, Bagman, Rock and Hard Place, Waterworks, Winner, Something Unforgivable, Bad Choice Road, and Click.
Nice. Oh, Bad Choice Road.
That's very late series heavy.
No, but it pays off too, because Mike gives the little speech, which also is one of the rare moments somebody speaks to like the core of the show.
Yes.
And he says, someday you'll the decisions you make put you on a road. And like you said, with Kim Trick taking the U-turn, that becomes like the core of the whole back half of the show. And
it gets echoed where Jimmy harkens back to those words. He kind of parrots them to Kim and then to Jeffy when he's like, sooner or later, you'll just forget about it. You'll wake up and it's like you've never even thought about it.
And even in season 2, which quick shout out to Price, one of the funniest side characters, who sells the drugs to Nacho.
Mark Prosh.
Yeah, he's excellent.
Dude, Mark Prosh.
Before I derail this whole point, Thomas Schnauz, who wrote the episode with the phone call with Kim, with some of the dialogue, he wanted to make sure he put in the name Danny when he was speaking to Francesca, so that he could sneak in as Price being the guy who owns the laser tag area, the store in Breaking Bad.
Nice.
So canonically, it's the same guy.
What is the episode where Nacho poisons Hector?
I think it's the season 3 finale.
Is it season 3 finale?
He practices the routine and Slip. I think it's a season 3 episode.
Yes. Slip is the episode that I'm thinking of.
Nice.
Because that episode is also like up there. I fucking love that episode so much. That's an incredible Nacho moment, that whole episode. Yeah, Slip and then Fall right afterwards.
I remember what I was going to say, and it's that Mike also speaks to like the core theme of the show in like season 2 when he's talking to Price, and he gives that little speech like, I've known bad cops, I've known good criminals. Being a bad guy and a criminal isn't the same thing. And that's like Jimmy's whole struggle.
Yeah.
The
gray area.
Yeah.
Just live in the grays.
It comes up with how Kim plays it. Like, that's a big question on the show. Like, where does she land on this whole thing?
Yeah. It's not as simple as just Breaking Bad. It's a more complicated exploration of that gray area where you're not quite good, you're not quite bad. It's not as simple as like you were once bad and now you're good, or vice versa. You're just all of it at once, and you're on that road, and it's about the choices that you make on that road. And it's the genius of this fucking show. Okay. Favorite characters, guys.
Ooh.
This might be even harder than the episode Hall of Fame. But this show has had some incredible characters. I gotta shout out my guy Nacho, because he is what made me fall in love with this show. And now in a post finale world, I'm like so in love with Jimmy and Kim, and I want the best for them. And they are the core and the heart of this show through and through. This is a love story at its core. But when I was watching those early seasons, Michael Mando's performance is what kept me going, man. I was so locked into this guy and his ability to show 100 different emotions with the most stoic look on his face.
Oh man.
Such a tragic character and so powerful.
And that genius final phone call with his dad. That is just a total heartbreaker, man.
I'm going to cry right now.
It's like the negative space in between a conversation. Like everything that isn't said is what's so impactful in that scene. It's like just screenwriting 101 and like perfectly directed. It's, oh my God, just completely heart-wrenching.
I need to know what you guys think about that scene, because again, it's these areas where the writers don't give us a straight answer and they want us to think about it and figure it out. Do you think his dad knew that was the last time he was going to talk to his son or not? What was going through his dad's head?
I don't think so. Because there isn't
what's interesting about the performance and I don't have the actor's name pulled up in front of me, but the actor who plays Nacho's dad is that he's not playing it particularly like sad or even like remorseful. It's more annoyed than anything. It's more just like, you can always go to the cops. Like, it's more just like you can get out of this whenever you want, son. Like, I'm done telling you this.
Yeah.
Like, it's that kind of like exhausted nature to it. And that's what makes it even more tragic, is because Nacho knows that this is the last time. Like, he knows that he is on death row right now, and he cannot explicitly even express that to his father. And his father's just kind of done with it.
So, some of the best acting I've ever seen it is from Michael Mando in that scene. I was blown away by what he was doing. The all the emotions he was channeling. It was
so good,
incredible. What about you, Javi? What's your take on that scene and the dad?
My gut is that I had a similar read as you did, Hunter. Like, I feel like I read him as being tired. But it was also really sad because you're saying, because Nacho knew, but he had no idea. He's just like, I don't even want to talk to you right now. Like, I don't want anything to do with you, because the fact that you think this was even cool to go off and work with these guys, like, he does base a lot of who he is as a person, I feel like, on creating a business and being his own man and staying outside of that world. Like, because he did work hard and he has to have some of that. So I do think, and I'm sure like at some point he had in mind that Nacho would work with him and they would just do that. So it has to hurt even more that he would just leave. So I just have to figure he was done with him, which makes that scene so tragic to me.
My read on it is, I think that going back to that point you just mentioned about him kind of wanting to be an honest man, I think it's also him wanting to choose to be a naive man too. Mm-hmm. Like to me, it didn't read as much as like he's exasperated or anything like that. He just wants to pretend that his son is not a criminal.
Yeah.
And he wants to just almost like choose to live in this fantasy that like he can talk to his son and pretend that his son is not dealing with the problems that he's dealing with.
Yeah.
And that it wouldn't even be a possibility for him to be facing the fucking awful, fatal fate that he's about to face, because how could he? He's a good boy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that's kind of how I read it, is like, it's just this, out of sight, out of mind, like choosing to live in this fantasy, naive space. But to that point, I love that that's not the last time we see him. And we get that bit with Mike.
Yes.
Where it kind of recontextualizes it a little bit. And we find out,
He's just like, you're just a gangster. You're just like everybody else.
He's not being naive. He was not being naive at all. And he knew exactly what was going on. And in a way, in an even more tragic way, guys, this show is really fucking sad. In a really tragic way. Really, he had already said goodbye to his son a long time ago before that.
Yeah. As soon as he continued to go down this path, because I mean, very early on the show, he's just like, Nacho goes to his father and is just like, hey, no, like, you just like let them work out of here and like, you'll be good. You'll be protected and all this stuff. And he's like, no, get out of here. Like, stop being around this. Like, no amount of money is going to be worth the danger that you're putting yourself in and you're putting our family in by dealing with these people. And his dad was right. Like, he was straight the whole fucking time. Of course he was.
I'm on the same wavelength, man. I totally agree. Like, if Nacho is up at night with a glass of milk, like, Dad, listen, I got it down. Just do what they say. And I'm just thinking, like, no fucking way, man. There's no way. Like, you think you just sit up here, do the dad thing and wait up for me? No way. Like, I have to think that he was pissed, man, because he probably had a totally different vision for Nacho's life. It would have been nice to get a little more of that, but whatever we got was totally heart-wrenching between Nacho and his dad. That's what's so great about the show, too, because all of the side characters just sing in whatever small amounts of time that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough doing like a favorite character, because it's like, well, I could like continue to sing the praises of Tony Dalton and Michael McKean even going down to like some of the more like very peripheral characters, like what is his name? Stephen Bauer, who plays Don Eladio.
Nice.
Like every time they go see that man, I'm just like, yeah, no, I'd go to war for this dude for sure, no doubt, man. Like I'll go ahead. Like, what do you want? You want me to sell some meth for you? Sure, dog, I got you. Like just down the line, it's like everybody is incredible. If you put a gun to my head and say, who's your favorite part of this show? I mean, it feels cliche to say at this point, but it's got to be Rhea Seehorn, right? Like it's everything. I didn't think that this show could possibly create characters out of whole cloth that were as wholly memorable as Walt and Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just kind of thought that we were past that. And you know, Nacho is amazing. I mean, they created several of those characters. That's one of the things that is even more impressive about the show. But at the end of the day, it's Kim and Jimmy. And Kim Wexler is this wholly original idea who is the heartbeat of this show. The fact that we spend the last 2 episodes not just with Saul, Jimmy, but we as an audience feel the need to know where is Kim now. We're
so invested. We care so much.
That's just kind of says it all about how important of a character this is that they created and how special of a character it is that Rhea Seehorn is channeling here.
Just an excellent performance. And like I'm so just curious about Kim's journey and where she's going to end up. Like I'm watching her like to the iota, like every muscle move. I'm like, oh man, where's she going with this one? But it's like one of the most enticing questions I've ever been asked by a TV show. It's just, what is going to happen to this person?
Mm-hmm. What about you, Javi? If you had to pick a favorite character?
So obvious. I have to go. My gut instinct says Kim, but I have to give a favorite side character because the unsung hero of the show is Caldera, the veterinarian.
Book guy. Yeah.
If we are doing another spinoff of this show, I want it to be about that guy. I'm like, I want to see the Black Book. I want to see everything that's in there, all of his connections.
He like the fact that like Mike rolls into Albuquerque and meets this guy by sheer need of being healed by a gunshot wound. And then him being the crux of Jimmy meeting guys in the criminal world and how we get Stephen Ogg and working with Mike from the same connection. And then Jimmy works with him for trying to pull a con on what's his name? Mesa Verde, fucking Kevin. But yeah, I have to give it to Caldera the veterinarian because it's one of the all-time greatest side characters. I just think it's so
when
cool.
You think about a character who's just like you are fascinated and just want to know more information, and then totally has like, I don't know, like 15 minutes of screen time in the entire series, but you're just like, no, give me more, give me a whole show about that guy. That's great.
That's just making me want to rewatch this whole show. Just thinking back to like early days of these. I mean, we've come such a long way, man. This story, I just want to watch the whole thing. And Breaking Bad, like, oh my God, that's going to be such a journey. Just diving back.
When you are talking about bringing back the legacy characters, I mean, of course, Bob Odenkirk as Saul, the central character, but Giancarlo Esposito and Jonathan Banks just kind of didn't really know how much story there was left to tell for those characters. And man, it's just great when, you know, sometimes whenever there is just like that chance to see Don Draper come back and just kind of put on the suit again, like sometimes it's just great when you see somebody who is born to play this role come back and play the role, and it doesn't feel like fan service. It actually feels like there's a purpose to it. Yeah. It's so satisfying. Like it's hard to even talk about how great they are because they are still doing the same performance. Like it's not like Bob Odenkirk where they're like channeling different, they're throwing like a changeup based on the fastball that they had in the previous show. I don't know.
They get more time.
I don't know fucking baseball, guys. I'm trying my best out here in my baseball metaphors, but they're aren't fluctuating their speeds. They are still doing the same performance, but there's just still doing that same performance really well. Jonathan Banks has some more layers to him, I'd say, than necessarily Gus does. But
with his granddaughter, the whole granddaughter plot line, like, oh my God, that just adds so much humanity to him.
Some more background to the whole thing of his son dying and like how that just completely kind of sent him off the deep end a little bit.
His little "I broke my boy" speech is one of the most Also, season 1, 5th episode, the entire show, but super sad. And we get so much out of Mike. And I never thought we would get all that. And I'm so fortunate for it. It's such a golden episode.
Also, I just real quick, they're in Breaking Bad too. The two scariest individuals I've ever seen in my entire life are Daniel and Luis Moncado, who play the cousins.
Yes.
When you just see the two of them standing on a rooftop staring at you, I like want to shit myself. I'm like, I've never been so terrified in my entire life of seeing these two cousins just fucking staring at me from afar. It's great. I kind of, as soon as they popped back up in this show, that was like one of my favorite kind of almost throwaway type characters, but you see them in here and I'm like, oh man, these guys are so scary. I love them.
I mean, to that same effect, like them and Hector, whenever they come up, and especially towards the end when Hector's in the wheelchair with the bell, it just like all of that stuff is so attached to Breaking Bad that I'm almost
talk about all the color of the bell and how that pays off in Breaking Bad with Gus's death scene and everything. Just so good.
That all of that stuff is like, it's fun, but it's so attached to Breaking Bad and the tone of that show that it like juxtaposes how much like mature and grown up Better Call Saul is in a way that it's like he's like dinging the bell and it's just like, oh yeah, this is fun, but it's like we've been operating at like this entire other level of storytelling that when we're back with Hector ringing the bell, it's like
big time.
When I see that, it's just like Better Call Saul's it's a better show than Breaking Bad. Like this is the show for grownups. Like we don't have to ding the bell all the time, and it's more rich and layered.
I mean, that's what I mean about, that's why like season 4 is so important for the show, is because there is a little bit of that parallel timelines where you're like the whole like, all right, now we have to do the Better Call Saul fan service for the Breaking Bad fan service for people that are on here. We have to throw the mob shit in here. And like, it does kind of it feels detached from the show that you're watching until it's no longer detached at a certain point.
It's all fun though. It's never unwelcome. Fun.
Yeah, it's still a blast. I'm never like, oh, can we like get past all of these like crazy mafia shit that we got going on over here with this whole family?
That did remind me. I did want to go back to the episode, the last I guess it is the last Nacho episode, or maybe the one before, where he's running from the Salamanca twins, and it's like this super crazy episode of him just like,
that's a great one,
hiding in the oil and all that shit. Like,
so cool.
Oh god, that was
shots.
So good.
Fucking shots.
That was so fucking good. Guys, I'm actually going to change my pick from Michael Mando to the filmmaking crew.
Oh, nice.
That's actually my pick of the best character.
The shots. My favorite character are shots.
No. The filmmaking guys that helped him with the commercials.
You got to pay extra for a dolly. You got to pay extra.
Those are the MVPs of this entire operation.
That little shithead who plays the director is incredible. That's so like good. Every guy who took 2 years of film school, film classes in college, just like, yeah, no. Well, now you have to charge double. So like, kind of a big deal now. You're taking me out of physics. So like, yeah, I have to charge you more now.
I was always so happy to see them. I was like, yes, I love these guys.
Whenever they put on makeup to play like old people for a commercial.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Like and just I gotta give another little shout out here. I feel like I gotta give shout out to every single scene of the show, but their last scene when they're helping with the ham scam and they're like they have that shot where it's just spinning around them.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what a cool moment. Like I felt guilty for how much fun I was having because obviously I'm such a wreck after. It was so great. So much fun. But I get it, man. Nacho is such a great character. I just wish he feels like such a big character. And in actuality, he doesn't have that much screen time compared to everybody else, but he just kills it in every scene that he's in. Nacho is an iconic character. And to see him in his first appearance, just talk down Tuco. Like that's his set of expertise. Like, oh yeah, this is what I do. Like, this is I got him.
Fucking hardcore. Such a hard ass.
So that Mexican restaurant that they operate out of, do we think the food's good there?
At least they have good chips and guac is my guess. Like at the very least, you got.
I was wondering. I was like, it's authentic as hell when they try to make it. Otherwise, I feel like if you're just a casual guy walking in there for like some nice enchiladas, like it might taste like shit. It might just have been sitting there for hours. Like you
gotta hope that you get that the chips are not stale, and don't venture too much. Just get a taco and a nice cold beer, and you'll be fine.
I've never been to Albuquerque, but I got high hopes for the Mexican food there. I have to. I mean, that it's a great fucking restaurant.
They got like Hatch Green chilies and shit like that are actually fresh as hell. So like, there's a floor at least that's there. At first when I saw it there, I was like, damn, I bet this place is like really good. And then the more time that you spend there, it's like, well, do they cook in this kitchen? Like, do they actually like, if you like order a number 7, are they going to know how to make
not meth, don't cook meth, actual food.
It's like we see the cook once and he's like sweating his balls off because that's when Nacho kills the AC to practice the scam.
That makes me more confident in it. I actually only like a good restaurant if I just see if there's like half sweat is the moisture in my food. Like cut out the olive oil on the pan, just pure sweat to grease that pan.
Real sweat and blood in there. But Lalo cooked in there the one time. So I mean, we'll see.
Yeah. Lalo was putting on some tunes. He was doing his whole thing in there. Living his best life.
Last call to shout out anything from this incredible series. I'm going to shout out one last thing. It's the scene between Jesse and Kim.
Nice.
Just a nice little overlap of these two stories. It's the end of Kim. It's the beginning of Jesse. It's
end of Waterworks.
It's these two people that had a soul that was corrupted by this world and that were taken over by forces outside of their control that got the better of them. And to see them have that chat and share that cigarette was a great little bit of fan service, like fan service in the perfect way with actual thematic resonance.
That's probably my favorite use of the flashbacks between like our core Walt and Jesse that we got. Breaking Bad as an episode is fun because it's fun to like go back to that episode where he first met Saul and everything else like that. But just that one little moment that's a little bit quieter of the is he good? He was whenever I knew him. Like how that goes on to impact like both of their lives. This little interaction that they have is just, it's perfect. It's so well done.
Just imagine if Kim was still a lawyer there and she could have represented them and it all could have been avoided.
Wow.
I was like thinking about it after, because I mean, that's the penultimate episode and that could have been the last time that we see Kim.
Yeah.
Could have been like that last shot when she walks away, like runs away to her car in the rain. And honestly, I think that's a pretty good ending. The ending that we got was better for Kim. Like it definitely ended on even more of a high. But like if we never saw Kim again, I think I would have been happy with where we ended her. Is that we see her in the modern day. We see her be like, you need to turn yourself in. And then we get that flashback moment of the last time that she saw Jimmy as she knew him.
So good. Well put, man.
Any last little shout outs before we wrap up, boys?
Just the time machine. Did you guys see it in episode 1? Like he had it on his nightstand.
Yeah.
The H.G. Wells's. And then to wrap it all up with that Chuck scene, to see that was Chuck's book all along. And that's why he's been sitting with his book. Because I feel like Chuck hardly gets mentioned after he dies. And it's so like weird watching the show, thinking like, where did it even happen? Like, where is he? Where is it going to come up? And what you said, like planting the seed when he finally admits that he led to his suicide.
Yeah.
Just want to shout that out. I was so happy to get that in the flashback. That's what I was looking for. That
he needed to rid himself of that guilt and we as viewers needed to be reminded of the weight of Chuck on this story, because after season 3, it became more about all these other characters, and to go back to that and to see him again was really powerful. So,
but like, it is one of those things where he's gone. Like, you aren't physically seeing Michael McKean anymore, but he does have this massive shadow on everything.
Jimmy for that recognition from everyone.
I mean, on more than anybody, on Patrick Fabian, on just Howard. Howard is the one who's shouldering the guilt and the regret that Jimmy should be shouldering.
Man,
that's one of the things that's just so well done. Just, oof, man. All right. God, what a show, guys. What a fucking show, man.
Could go all day with that, dude. I swear. But yeah.
Better Call Saul, the end of an era, an incredible show. Thank you to Peter Gould and Bob Odenkirk and all the cast and crew for creating this fucking incredible piece of art.
Take your flowers, everybody, cast and crew, everyone gets their flowers.
I'm so happy.
Thank you.
I can't wait to rewatch it one day. It's going to be a trip. And thank you, boys, for this great podcast. Thank you, Javi, for joining us. I hope that you're able to come on again soon.
Hell yeah. I hope that you get out for good behavior.
Right.
And you don't have to spend the next 80 years in black and white purgatory.
I got it.
I promise you it won't be for something better than Better Call Saul.
Yeah, it would be hard to find, but it was an honor, of course. And honestly, I needed to get some of that off my chest because I cannot stop thinking about this show, even after it's ended. So
it's gonna ruminate in my head for a long time. It's one of those where I'm just gonna be thinking about it randomly. It's just I'll think about Cinnabon and Kim and Mark Proch
at home thinking
yellow Hummer.
You know the fallacy of sunk costs. I know that. But yeah, legendary.
All right. Well, thanks again, and thank you for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe, and let us know what you thought about Call Saul. Like and comment, and visit webottomike.net for the full archive, where you can also become a donor. Thank you, beautiful donors, for donating and supporting the show. Next week, we are returning to Robin with Flubber.
Oh, I can't wait. It's gonna be
a banger. It's gonna be an unhinged episode. I can say that right now.
You like awesome. Flubber, Javi?
I'm excited. I was obsessed with this movie after not watching it as a kid, but it turned out to be so much fun when I watched it. It's
kind of shouldn't be a children's film. It is the horniest children's movie that has ever existed, and in all the wrong ways. I can't wait to dive into
Javi,
it.
We had you on for Mrs. Doubtfire, and I feel like this is gonna give it a run for its money in terms of like a family movie that pushes
that's unhinged,
the distinction. Of
the two family figures of Robin Williams's family going movie career
is trying to dress up like a woman to reconnect with his ex-wife's family, and possibly having a romantic love interest with a floating robot, as he's does not care about his wife at all because he's more interested in Flubber.
What are you gonna do? I got research.
Green Man.
Also, if you haven't already, check out the episode I did with Dane on For All Mankind season 3. It just wrapped up, and Jordan Peele's Nope. We have a review for that on the feed as well. So stick around, stay tuned for more Robin and more coverage on the latest movies and television. Recommend the show, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.